Welcome to another episode. We have a special episode today in that we have a guest. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I don't really do guests. I want this podcast to be one unified message, right? There's a lot of podcasts out there that you can listen to where it's a host and they interview a ton of guests and you get a whole bunch of different opinions, different viewpoints, some completely conflicting, right? And so then you just have, well, should I do this? Because I'm pretty sure that someone we had on 4 weeks ago said I should do this, and those don't seem compatible. And so we wanted one unified message that you could listen to that would encourage you and guide you along, mentor you in your journey in retirement, whether you're still leading up to retirement or you're in retirement, right? Your mentor to and through retirement. One unified message. And so I don't usually do guests, but one of the things I think is great, and as rare as the messages that I have are, right? And they are rare, right? Most financial services representatives out there are selling insurance, selling annuities, selling commission products, having people get more and more into bonds as they get closer instead of investing in the glorious returns of the best businesses in the world. And so a lot of what we talk about is rare, but it's not unique. Right. The messages that I have are rare, but they're not unique. And, you never want to follow somebody that they're the only one who thinks like that, right? Because that's probably a cult. Right. And so, a lot of things I've said, it's probably different than what you would hear somewhere else in a radio personality or just in the general media or whatever else. But what I wanted to just do is show that, hey, while it's rare, it's not unique. There are other really good financial planners out there that are guiding people, also mentoring their clients and audience in retirement and also doing it right. And so my guest on today's podcast is Joe Curry. He's a Canadian financial advisor up just in the Toronto area, and he also has his own retirement podcast. It's called the Retirement Planning Simplified podcast, and you can find it at retirementplanningsimplified.ca.canada, right? And so they've got some things are different up there in Canada, right? They don't have IRAs and 401ks. They've got whatever they're called up there, right? Is just different. But a lot of things are exactly the same, right? They still have to invest in equities and have those go up and down. And they still have to do things to try to reduce taxes, to do these other things. And so he and I align on a lot of different topics. And I've listened to a little bit of his podcast. He listened to a bunch of mine. He reached out to see if we want to do a guest thing. So I'm going to be guesting on his podcast, which is also coming out today, I believe. He's going to be on mine here. And so I just asked him to, hey, what do you want to talk about? And he's going to talk about just some values and how you can discover some of your values to have a more fulfilling retirement. And so I just asked him, hey, I don't do interviews on this podcast. So just give us what you got, right? So he's got his own little monologue for you here today, which will kick off in just a second. And so take that, enjoy that. It's different. Maybe it's good to hear a little bit of other voices every once in a while. That's still kind of aligned with what we talk about here. We'll just have Joe on for a bit, and I'll come back in at the end, and we'll take it from there.
Hey, everybody. My name is Joe Curry. I'm excited to be a guest on Freeman's podcast today. Now, Freeman talks a lot about different planning techniques and ideas and strategies. And he's also talked along the same vein as some of the things I'm going to talk about today. But the reason that I'm on the podcast today is Freeman wanted me to talk a little bit about values and purpose and the importance of getting clear on your values and purpose if you're going to have a successful retirement. So the first thing that you want to consider with financial planning in general, this is retirement planning or otherwise, is what your values are. Most people have internally an idea of what those values are, but most people don't get really intentional about taking a deeper dive about what those core values really are and how they incorporate them into their life. The reason that it's really important to get clear on your values is because once you're clear on your values, it's a lot easier to make good decisions about money, and it's a lot easier to live an enjoyable life. So what I mean by making better choices is when you look at all the different companies and services that are kind of vying for your money, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in things that we don't actually really need, right? So our values can act as a filter. So for example, some of my values are family, adventure, growth. So these are just a few, but if I'm considering purchasing, if there's something that's coming up that maybe is a vacation where we're going to be snowboarding with my family, like that's right in alignment with my values. And I'm willing to maybe spend a little bit more money on something like that because I know that the enjoyment I'm going to get from it and the experience and the memories is going to be something that lasts for me. And that's because it's in alignment with my values. So how do you come up with these values? Again, you may just kind of have subconsciously some ideas, but we have a bit of an exercise that we use to help people get clear on this. So the first thing I always ask people to do is just write down, the first 10 words that come to mind when you think of values. So don't look at any other list, don't Google or anything like that. Just the first 10 words that come to mind. Okay. So I did give you a few examples, right? And then we're probably not looking at the video, but if you are up behind me, you see I have all my values. So family, growth, freedom, future focus, faith, and adventure. Those are some ideas, but beyond that, just put your first 10 words down that you think of. And then after that, what I invite you to do is now go and Google a list of values. Okay. And you'll get maybe 40, 50, 100 different words that represent different values. And what I would ask you to do now is print it out, circle the values that kind of resonate with you. You'll see a lot of words there that probably somewhat resonate, but we don't want you to have 100 core values. It's not going to be really helpful. And it's probably not true either. So once you put your list of 10 and you've identified some other values, then what I would ask you to do is go through those with a fine-tooth comb and really narrow it down to a maximum of 7. Less is better. I can only get down to 7. I always tell people 5 to 7. Some people can get it down to less than that. But once you've narrowed that down, then you have a framework for making decisions about your spending and the actions that you're taking so you can live more intentionally and you can have money for the things that are more important in life for you. And you're not getting distracted by all those other things that, again, are buying for your hard-earned money. Okay. So the second step, if you're married, that I would suggest is you take your values, have your spouse do this, and then you could come up with a kind of a core 5 to 7 family values when you put them together. Then that would be ideal for your future retirement planning. So getting clear on your values is just one piece of the puzzle. The next piece that's also really important that is non-money related is getting clear on your purpose. And I'll spend a little bit more time here today because in working with clients, just like Freeman, one of the things that I find is a lot of the people we talk to are ready to retire financially, right? They have the resources, they have the plan financially, but they're not ready for that next step because they're retiring from something, but they haven't figured out what they're retiring to. And I know Freeman did another episode talking about identity, but that's one of the keys here that becomes an issue for a lot of people when they get to retirement is they start to feel depressed. You've probably heard stories or know someone who's retired and quickly after got very sick, maybe passed away, or you hear all the time of people being depressed in retirement. And a big part of that is because their identity is wrapped up in their career, right? So maybe you're a business owner or a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever it is, but that's been your identity and how you've gone through the last 30 years, right? So all of a sudden, if you retire and you take a step away from that and you haven't figured out your new identity and your new purpose, it's not going to be a very fulfilling retirement. So for a lot of people, continuing to work in some form might help you get that purpose that you need, right? So I know it's scary for a lot of people when I start talking about finding your purpose because people think that they have to have this thing that they were born to do that only they can do. And if they get it wrong, then they're like, won't have any purpose. But that's not really what finding purpose is all about. And if you can find that one thing, that's great. But really, if purpose can be changing over time, right? So, maybe your purpose for a long time is helping your kids grow into respectable young adults who can start their own family, but eventually they do that and your purpose needs to shift, right? So when you're thinking about purpose, it's really what's your priority right now? And you can have more than one priority. So you don't want to spread that too thin, right? Jim Collins said if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. So what we suggest when you're thinking about purpose is to start coming up with maybe 1 to 3 things that you can get really excited about. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to come up with this purpose. And again, don't be afraid to get it wrong, and you can adjust and experiment over time. One of the things that I ask people to do when we're kind of going through an exercise to help identify this purpose is to understand what your identity is right now first. Okay, so if it's your career, if it's being a parent, whatever that is for you, start by just understanding where you're at right now. Okay, then beyond that, start thinking of what are some of the best experiences you've had. So can you think of 3 to 5 experiences in your life that really stand out for you above and beyond everything else? And what are the things that you're really good at? Like, are there some skills that you have that set you apart from other people or that are kind of unique? And are there things that you just love, you're passionate about? Like, what is your thing? So one of the things that I really love is being active in a lot of different ways. But right now I'm doing a lot of working out and training for some Spartan races, which is something that I started because I just wanted to push myself to kind of stay in shape. But now, I'm getting pretty excited about going to the gym every day. So that's something that I'm passionate about right now. So you list those all out and then think about, is there anything that you're doing right now that is giving you that sense of purpose, right? Or the things that just give you joy that you just like to do, you're always going to want to do. So make some notes of those. And then thinking on past experiences, passions, the values that you just came up with, hobbies you have, volunteering you're doing. Think about all the things you're already doing, but also think about what are some other things you could kind of add into the mix of all of a sudden you're freed up a bunch of time because you're retiring, okay, or you're working less. So what are some things that could start to build those experiences, but help you use those skills, get you doing the things that you're passionate about, all that kind of stuff. Start thinking about those and listing them out. So hopefully, if you kind of go through this exercise, you're going to have a pretty big list of things that you could be focusing on. Now, again, you don't want more than 3 priorities. So we really want to whittle that down. So the next thing I'd have you do is go back through everything that you've just listed out and start crossing off anything that does not align with your values and anything that, while may have been applicable while you were working, won't be applicable when you retire. So if you combine what's left to pick kind of your top 3 things you can pull out of there as your top 3 purposes. So for example, right now, mine are family, business, and health. So if you can find 3 in there, you can identify that you could really make a priority, get excited about right now. And then beside each of those purposes, now what I want you to do is write out some steps or some activities that are going to help you really dial in to those different purposes. So, for example, for me with health, I was just talking about it, right? So health is a big priority for me. So that's why I mentioned the Spartan race, because I always want something that's going to be pushing me. So we came up with this idea, a few of my friends and I, what's going to help us really stay committed to our health and stay in good shape. And so there was a Spartan race. So that's just an example of coming up with some kind of goal or some kind of event or something you want to work towards that's going to help you continue to focus on those priorities. So I want to make sure that I emphasize that a sense of purpose is not rigid and it can shift throughout your retirement years. Of course, it's going to shift from working to retirement. And the point of finding your purpose is knowing what's important to you now. It's what's going to make you get excited to get up in the morning. Where do you want to experience growth? And what's going to give you that sense of a fulfilling retirement, right? So after you work through the exercise, you may have found a couple of choices are really obvious to you, but you also may be just kind of curious, maybe you come with some ideas and you're not really sure maybe what that 3rd priority is for you. So you could literally make one of your purposes or your priorities right now to start experiencing and experimenting with the ideas that you've come up with, right? So you had a bunch of ideas that might be interesting to you, or you might be able to get passionate about, but you're not really sure what they are. So, maybe that is just trying new things every week until you really find something else that you want to dig into. So the whole point here, though, is if you just retire from something without knowing what you're going to retire to, without having something to get you out of bed in the morning, retirement is not going to be what you expected. And you're just going to wish you were back in work. There's going to be something missing. And I've seen this from a number of clients. This isn't something that is unique or rare. It's very common. So I'd invite you to really take this episode and these exercises we just walked through seriously and see what you come up with, right? And ideally, you're not doing this in retirement. If you're already there and you're already feeling like there's something missing, for sure, do this, get on it. Now, but if you're listening to this and you haven't retired yet, that's the perfect time to start thinking about it. And maybe even you're starting to transition some of these priorities while you're still working so that once you retire, you can just hit the ground running. I want to thank you for listening to me today. I know, like I said, Freeman has a ton of great stuff around retirement planning. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the non-financial aspects of retirement planning that I think are even more important than the finances in a lot of cases, especially for a lot of the people that Freeman and I talk to on a regular basis. So If you've gone through this and you've done it, congratulations. This is the start to a fulfilling and purposeful retirement. I hope you enjoyed what we're chatting about today. If you want some help going through those exercises, I do have a retirement navigator that you can find on my website, Retirement Planning Simplified.ca. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that. I know I did some interesting things to think about, some different tactics that we can do to just be better and live closer to our values in retirement, really find those. So again, you can find this episode in the show notes, the link for this episode and all the links that we talked about in the show, links to his podcast, to his website. Those will all be in there as well. If you know any, especially if you know any Canadian folks that you think could use some help, certainly feel free to refer them up there, because then you can, I don't do anything with Canadian things, so that's always helpful. But hope that was helpful. We will be back next week, and we will see you then. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did enjoy that, you would love being a part of our free membership community. It's called Retire Membership, and you can sign up today completely for free. When you do that, you get a host of bonus and exclusive content that we don't give out anywhere else. For example, you can buy my book, 3D Retirement Income, on Amazon, but if you become a Retire member, we will send you one for free or give you the audiobook and ebook just for signing up. You also get additional bonus content, exclusive content, including Client Corner insights from some of the best minds in behavioral investing, workbooks to go along with our workshops to help you get the most out of it, and more ongoing bonus and exclusive content. Some of this you can't get anywhere else, and so we would love for you to join our community. You can join now at retiremembership.com. Otherwise, there's a link in the description of this video where you can sign up. All we want to do is continue to give you the best information out there so that you can retire successfully and stay successfully retired. So you can go in there, do that on our website. There's also a longer form podcast. I think it's episode 80 that will help explain what it is and what we're trying to do with Retire Membership. But join now for free. Get this and much more exclusive content by joining us today. We look forward to seeing you there, and thanks for watching. Cheers.